Dear friends, welcome to Impromptu Stories. Today I have the privilege of speaking with a remarkable young woman, Gulbahar. At just 22 years old, she carries a role that demands strength, compassion, and quick thinking. When someone is facing a crisis or needs urgent help, she is that calm and steady voice on the other end of the line, ready to listen and ready to act. Her work as an emergency response specialist may be happening behind the scenes, but the impact she's making is very real. Today we get to step into her world, hear her experiences, and learn what it truly means to be there for others when it matters the most. I'm so excited for you to hear her story and to see the world through her eyes, a world of responsibility, resilience, and heart. Grab your favorite drink and join me for this deeply moving conversation. Hi, Gulbahar. Thank you so much for joining me on my little podcast.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine.
I know you go by Canadian name as Julia, but I will refer to you as Gulbahar. It's okay with you?
Yeah.
That's fine, okay. So you've now been working for almost a year at the Viz as an emergency response specialist. So when you first started, what did you imagine this work would be like, and how does it feel to you today?
Viz is broadly a communication company. They provide multiple kinds of services, and actually a lot of their employees usually specialize in different kind of like customer service call taking. So it's not just emergency calls, it can be different kinds of calls. But I was hired specifically as an emergency response specialist. I thought I would have to be taking emergency calls in Canada only, because I thought, well, because I'm Canada-based. Actually, they trained me to take calls in America and Canada, too.
Really?
So I had to learn a lot about how the way 911 works and kind of like the history of 911 in America, as well as kind of Canada, but mostly just...
Is it different? The system is different? Or what?
It's not that the system is different. It's more like how has the system of 911 evolved since the days of the dial-up phone, since the days of having no social media, right?
Yeah, so when you were hired for this job, did you think it was only for Calgary? It was going to cover only Calgary,
Yes.
but it's apparently covering the whole Canada
And
America.
So North America.
Really? That's very interesting. That's a big surprise probably for you.
Yes.
So were there any moments in those first few weeks when you started working for this company that made you pause and think, wow, this is actually different than expected? I know it was big surprise for you that you were working not only covering Calgary, but the whole Canada and America, but also maybe anything else?
Yes. Actually, there were quite a few moments where I was kind of taken aback of how frequent the emergency calls were, and it really opened up this idea that like I am there to help, but at a certain point, unless this person, unless this person actually tells me where they are, I can't help them. And one of the biggest things that I struggled with in the first few weeks was this idea of like, I will never not have any kind of closure because I will never know what happens after the call ends, right?
So how do you deal about that? Yeah.
Yes, and actually in response to that, right after I was hired, maybe a month or two after, the company, I guess, kind of realized the intensity of the calls, and they made us take like this like mini therapy course that you get a certificate from. And it was I liked the course. It was it was the kind of course that companies have employees take, and it was basically a course how to deal with like sometimes the traumatic calls that you get. I remember the person who did the course was this psychologist from America So he designed this whole course for people in 911. You hear some, like, I guess, testimonies from 911 call takers. The impact of just because you're not really there doesn't, and you're all over the phone doesn't mean whatever happens over the phone, it doesn't affect you too, right? That's like that whole idea of like, just because you're removed from the situation doesn't mean that you can't be affected by the situation, right? So I liked that course. It really did help.
What were the most? I don't know. I know you cannot give me lots of details, but maybe like the majority of calls they were regarding like what they call people call for emergency. Like what kind of emergency?
Oh, there's so many different reasons why someone can be calling in for emergency. Especially in my first 6 months working there. There was a lot of like different pain that people that came across to me, like
personal pain, you mean?
Well, yes,
personal
like
crisis.
Personal, like there's yes, that's the right word. Like there's so many different crises that people call in 911 for, and a lot of the time, sometimes you have to tell them, listen, this is something that I can't help with, but I can transfer you over to a mental health professional, right? Because that's our job. We have to first use our judgment to say, okay, is this actually an emergency where I have to transfer them over to actual resources, right? Because you don't want to waste the police's time.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? You're basically there to act like a buffer.
Yeah.
To kind of help make sure that the real emergencies get to the
police and fire department?
Yes. So, yeah, there's a lot of
interesting
reasons.
So without naming any names or details, is there a call, a moment that still kind of lingers in your heart? One that reminded you why your role matters so much in this job?
Yes. There was a call. It was in either Saskatchewan or Manitoba. It was on this, I guess, reserve. And it was a kid who called me. And she was calling in because of domestic violence. And I heard the parents yelling in the background. And she was like telling me, she wants the police to come. And that one still lingers in my head because it was not so long ago that I too was in a similar situation where I also, called police. Yeah. On the verge of calling police and wanting them to, come and separate things between my parents. But, fear always held me back. My parents always said if the police knew what was happening here, they would take you guys away.
And the kids, yeah.
And we didn't want to be taken away from our parents.
You didn't want to be separated from your parents.
Right.
Although the situation in the family was going rough for you, but still.
Yes, but this kid, she was around 12. She said she had a cousin, 9 years old boy. They were both like hiding in the room. Oh. And I really remember the way she acted. That's the thing about kids in crises. They act almost, a lot of the time they act, the way they act surprises you because they act so almost grown up.
Because they have to mature quickly like that, I guess. Maybe, do you think the situations maybe make them be an adult in that situation, I guess, a little bit? Which is tough, I guess. I do understand.
Yes. I think it's also, it's just, she acted, she was very calm. She was very rational.
Really? Wow. She wasn't crying and
she wasn't crying, panicking. And it's kind of because I think she's just used to.
Yeah, I see.
You know what I mean? Like in those kinds of situations where you have to watch the adults you trust act in ways that you can't trust, right?
Yeah, they're not safe.
You have to step up. And I felt that in her. She had to step up for her 9-year-old cousin, right?
And for herself, I guess, for their safety.
Yes, and she was very clear and because one of the things that I remember about that call was the way she doesn't just live in in a suburb where it was kind of easy to find her. She actually lived in like this remote place, and you know there was like specific instructions on how to get to this place, and she was very like, okay, you have to go 2 roads down here, and then we're like the second house on the left, we're the red house, all blah, blah. And I was very I was like, I felt the pressure to like really get all of this right.
Details, yeah.
The details. Because the other thing is, in those calls, one of the big fears is that you don't want them to disconnect, right?
Yes.
By accident or not by accident, who knows, right? So,
what if you
it's your job,
change your mind, right? So,
so it's your job to make sure you get as much as information as possible so that you can act as like that important link, even when they're no longer on the line, you know.
So when did you let her go from the call? Like you felt that, did they take care of her? These 2 children?
Yes, I managed to connect her over to police. Yes, and they took it over from there. But again, the way that 911 works is that especially they too have to take it by priority, right? So there are calls where like I handle one call in the morning, and then 2 hours later they call and say, where is the response? Why didn't they come? So then you have to try and connect them again, and then then you say, hey, so this caller is calling, they want a status update. Like where are they, right? So
this situation specifically like touched your heart so deeply because it was a little bit like personal. Yes. You felt that you remembered yourself being as a young child in a similar situation, kind of thing. And are you worried like what happened to these kids, or what is it? How?
Of course, I mean, that's why I circle back to the issue of no closure. There's no way I can call back to her or like check in on her. They're all kind of just these ghosts I hear on the line, and they can they will, depending on how bad the situation is, they can follow you. And there's no really any way for you to
I guess that's my next question to you, like, because I think it takes really strong heart to hear people at their most vulnerable situations like that, like this one. So how do you personally stay grounded after your tough days being on the call?
I'm gonna be honest, the first few times I had to take very bad calls like that, it made me almost consider quitting the job because I thought I couldn't handle it. But at the end of the day, and I really credit like the fact that the actual people I work with, like the supervisors, I mean, they're all online really. Because a lot of the supervisors, they're in America, because this company has like two offices in America, one in America, one in Canada. But like, I would say they helped me kind of realize that at the end of the day, this is a job. As long as you can say with some certainty you tried to do your best for them, then there's no need for you to, beat yourself up that you couldn't do more. And you're not God, right? Yeah.
So what maybe some like little or big things as you do as personal care for you, because you want to be unwinding and feeling grounded, feeling like healing, I guess, from all of this. Do you do anything like for yourself? How do you take care of you, I guess? Because it's tough. It's like for any therapist or distress worker. I want to know, like, how do you help yourself, to after such calls, So how do you take care of you, of you, Gulbahar,
Music, I think, is one thing. Music really helps to process the emotions in the moment.
Nice.
And
so you play piano, right?
Yes.
When you say music, you play piano. What else?
Listening to music.
Singing, And listening to music,
Yes, listening to music, and also distracting myself with reading, and also drawing. Drawing is a big one.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Basically, anything creative kind of recharges me, refuels me, If someone rendered me incapable of doing something creative, that would be basically denying me my ability to cope, something
Yes.
creative, something from my soul, from my heart, from my mind.
That's beautiful because that's your outlet, I guess, or the fuel for your energy, right? Out there, that's you can use anytime, right? So, what's something of about being an emergency responser that most people wouldn't even have guessed or seen from the outside? Like, what is it?
People probably everyone always assumes like every call is like a tragic one, but really, a lot of it is very mundane, and a lot of it is like there's a lot of funny. You gotta have a sense of humor to have this job.
Really? Okay.
There's a lot of
That's surprising.
funny calls. There's a lot of
Like
interesting
funny, like
people
what?
that you can meet and
You interact with, yeah?
interact with, and not all of it is like super, down in the dumps all the time. Unfortunately, we do get prank calls. I've been prank called,
Really?
and oh man, they wait. Yeah,
I mean,
it's a bad thing to don't prank 911. Basically, do not. I'm not saying you should. I'm saying it's a bad thing because you're wasting time and resources. But that's one thing I guess people would not realize is like, you deal with people who accidentally dial 911 or they don't actually have a 911 call. Yeah.
So if people from Calgary are dialing 911, it doesn't mean they're receiving a responser. I mean, the answer responser will be from Calgary. Could be from anywhere, right?
So that's that actually touches upon how exactly 911 works, especially in the modern age. So the calls I take are something called VoIP calls, which is voice over the internet, which means any 911 call that's made using a Wi-Fi connection goes through us because we are a transfer center, 911 transfer center. But the kind of calls that you're talking about, the ones that go directly to 911, that's part of a phone plan that you pay. You pay for your direct line to 911. Okay. But for whatever reason, if you are using a business phone or you're using a text now number, then that's how you reach us first before you reach 911.
Oh, I see. That's interesting. So if you could give your younger self one piece of advice before starting this kind of job, or I mean, like before 2 years, you are young already yourself, but I'm saying that what would you, before even like 2 years before you start this job, because you weren't working there here for almost a year, right? Let's say 2 years prior to your starting this job, what one piece of advice you would give yourself before even you start this job?
Well, truth be told, I never really imagined myself as an emergency response specialist. This is, for me, a part-time job. And I've been working since I was 15, and I've worked many jobs. I've worked 8-9 jobs since I was 15. So when I landed this job, I realized just how much random experience I have across so many different fields. It kind of struck me as odd, but also kind of cool how I could go from, retail to the movie theater to newspaper kid childcare, all these different things I've done. And for the longest time, I thought to myself, the right way was that you just stick to a job and you just go on forever. I thought that was like the right way to go about things. But ever since I've gotten this job, and it's helped me kind of reconnect with my strengths, like, because that's what I'm doing. When I'm talking to these people, I'm realizing, like, I can handle this. And if I could give myself one piece of advice, I think it would be to be less scared, because I was really scared. It would just be to be more willing to believe in myself.
Yeah, I think you're very brave, because not everybody can do this job. And I agree with you, all of the life experiences and work experiences you've accumulated so far, and you are like so young, right? How old are you today?
22.
if you can say that, you're so young. So you already applying that in your job, right? Because you have, as you mentioned, like family situation and working with kids and working in different places, right? Interacting with other people. That's interesting. That I really admire you for that. So when you look back, this will be my, before we close, can I ask you the last question? When you look back at this chapter someday, what do you think you'll be the most proud of? Like, let's say, I don't know, I'm sure it's your part-time job. You never imagined working for this job, but you're working there for almost a year now, and you've accomplished so much already. I'm sure you've grown so much through this experience, right? What are you really proud of today?
I'll illustrate this using an example. There was this one caller. He was very aggressive. He was swearing at me, and he was one of the callers that, like, you know, they call 911 when they're at the end of their rope, right? With life. So, and he wasn't like the first caller I had. The first call I had, yeah, that was scary. But this one kind of, what made it so different was the fact that when I talked to him, our first job, when we talked to those kinds of people, when they, you know, the people who, you know, they're staring into the abyss and they don't want to go on anymore, you try and keep them on the line long enough and try to convince them to give them their location, maybe. But a lot of the time, they kind of already made up their mind and they just want to tell someone, right? Anyone. And a lot of the time, even underneath that, you know, this is actually a cry for help. So that's why you have to be understanding. You have to try and be like, okay, try to make them stay on the line long enough so you convince them to transfer over to a mental health professional, right? Because 99% of the time, they're not asking for police, fire, medical. They do, especially police. But he was being very rude. Like, he was calling me, like, the C word, like CUNT, like 20 times. And that was the kind of first time I've ever experienced someone so aggressive. But at the same time, the way I handled it was basically, I was so proud about the way I had handled it because I was immediately so calm and rational. I didn't take it personally, and I didn't let it shake me with the way he was talking to me. And I basically managed to, because he was telling me, you don't get it. Like, what do you know? You don't get it. You don't know what I'm going through. And I decided to just, the way I kind of broke through to him was basically saying, I do. I told him the truth. I said, I know exactly what you're going through. And that kind of made him pause. He was like, he was like, really? I was like, I do. And I didn't elaborate. I didn't say, I've felt where you felt. I've also felt those feelings. But I just said, I know. I know exactly what you're going through. I just know. Don't tell me I don't know, because I do. And that made him pause. Like, he didn't call me any words after that. He was still, you know, kind of like this, but rough and stuff. But after that, he let me transfer him over to a mental health professional.
Okay.
Yes. Because he was saying, he was like, okay, I want to talk to someone. Then I was like, okay, I'll let you, here you go. So that was my breakthrough. Like, wow, that was basically kind of the worst of the worst. If I could handle that, I think I can handle really anything. And it kind of helped me to realize that a lot of people who seem so aggressive and so, you know, it's a lot of the time it's just this horrible hurt that they're also feeling. So as long as you don't take it so personally and you realize that it's not about you, it's about them, you know, you can really handle anything.
Thank you so much. This is such a deep and honest conversation. I appreciate your time and your energy and your trust and sharing your story with us, because I believe this is very inspiring journey you're having, and I really appreciate you opening up about your own inner feelings and emotions and how you can be really proud of yourself.
Thank
just
you.
By even not quitting this job, as you said, like several weeks into that, right into your position, but and your role in this job is huge. So thank you so much for helping our community to be a better place, and for I'm really proud of you, and you can be proud of yourself. Thank you so much. This is a beautiful conversation.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you. If this conversation touched you, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel, share this episode with someone who might need it, and leave your kind comment. Every word helps us build a safe and supportive community here. And if you have a story of your own you would like to share, I would be honored to hear from you and to have you as my guest. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Your voice and your story matter. Thank you.